Portugal's Golden Visa has been one of the most popular residency buy investment programs in Europe for over a decade, but the landscape has shifted. The real estate route is gone, the wait for citizenship just doubled, and yet many are still opting in for this program, contrary to what most expected. So why? That is what I'm going to address today. Despite the controversies and despite the fact that the terms have changed for the negative, this remains a strong program for a lot of people. Because when you actually compare Portugal to the other options in Europe or even the rest of the world, the program is still one of, if not the strongest on the table. I'll explain why in a moment. On top of that, there is a route into Portugal's Golden Visa that most people don't know exists. The disbursement is half what the main path costs, and there are zero overheads. And it still builds towards a European citizenship upon requirements, of course, with an average stay of 7 days a year, at least for the first few years. Now, before we go any further, it is worth mentioning that we operate in Portugal as well, but our goal is to offer multiple products across jurisdictions and different offerings. So to be quite frank, I would never address any of these with some bias, and if I have a bias, actually is the one to be maybe excessively conservative, because I know this market very well. So today I'm going through the full state of Portugal's program in 2026, every path that's still open, what has actually changed, and the one route I think is the most compelling entry point into Europe right now. Let's get into it. Before I give you the full picture of where Portugal's program stands right now, I'm going to first talk about one number. This one number separates Portugal from every other Golden Visa program in Europe, even after the reform, and it's not the investment amount. The number is 7, as in 7 days a year. That is the average physical presence Portugal asks from you, and unlike every other Golden Visa program in Europe, those 7 days count as the minimum staying requirement towards permanent residency first, and upon requirement, citizenship. Greece asks for 0 days to hold the permit, but if you want citizenship, Greece wants 183 days a year for 7 years. That is over 1,200 days on the ground. Half your life relocated. Italy, same structure. Malta, same structure. The residency is passive, the naturalization is not. Portugal does not split them. 7 days to hold, 7 days towards the permanent residency, and upon requirements, citizenship. The reform doubled the number of years, but it did not touch this mechanism. Specifically, the minimum stay requirement apply until year 5, when you can, upon requirements, obtain permanent residency. This is why this program is still unique until, of course, its requirements change. So here is the full picture. The real estate route was closed in October 2023. That was the path most people knew. Buy an apartment in Lisbon, get residency, that's gone. The capital transfer route also closed in the same wave of reforms. Then in May 2026, the big one. The Lei Organica number 1 of 2026 came into force in May of this year, and as you probably know, naturalization went from 5 years to 10. For European Union and CPLP nationals, that's Portuguese-speaking countries, by the way, it's 7 years. Now, for those who applied before the law changed, the situation is not entirely clear yet. We're waiting for the procedural rules to be implemented, which are expected around mid-August. Our position is that ultimately, whether through regulations themselves or through judicial challenge, protections will be granted to those applicants. This is our opinion. We will eventually expand it in other videos. As of today, that's not yet confirmed. What is clear is that none of these affects new applicants. So if you are entering the program now, you fall under the new regime regardless. 10 years to citizenship. So when people say Portugal is dead, that's the headline they are reacting to. But now you know the number, 10 years at 7 days a year. But let's be specific. This applies only for the first 5 years until you get eventually, upon requirements, permanent residency. So this means that you need to spend 7 days a year for 5 years, after which you can potentially withdraw your investment if that's the route you chose. And after that moment, potentially the requirement of 7 days a year does not apply anymore. So let me walk through the paths that are actually still open. And by the way, if you're new here, every week I share updates and strategies when it comes to relocation, tax optimization, and building a sovereign life abroad. So make sure to hit subscribe to follow along and hit that like button if you've been enjoying this so far. There are 5 main routes still available under Portugal's Golden Visa. Each one has a different price, a different structure, and a different profile it suits best. The most well-known one right now is the investment fund route, 500,000 into a regulated fund, no real estate exposure, and your capital is preserved in theory. But you carry fund risk, and it's the most popular path because generally people, of course, like the idea of getting their money back compared to other alternatives of donations. But compared to donation, for example, you are paying twice as much, and you are exposed, of course, to the market risks. The requirements are that 60% of the assets are invested in local companies, with one exception, real estate, which is not admitted as the object of those companies. There are also R&D and company capital specialization routes. These sits in the 200 to 250,000 range, legitimate paths, but they require more structuring and are less commonly used. There is also a job creation route, which means 10 positions of job created. There is no fixed capital requirement. It is available, but it's a different kind of commitment and not the path that most international applicants take. And there is the fifth route, the one that almost nobody talks about, the cultural heritage donation, which is 250,000 euro to an approved heritage or artistic project, or 200,000 if the project sits in a low density area. It's a donation. This means it's not refundable. You do not get the money back. And that's the trade-off you need to be comfortable with as a start. But here is also what you don't have to deal with. There is no fund to track or counterparties to keep a relationship with or coordinate with your accountant with complexities coming up every quarter, every year for multiple years. Essentially, in this case, there is one transfer, of course it's a donation, and you are in the system. The donation goes to projects certified by JPAC, which sits under the Portugal's Ministry of Culture, battlefield archaeology, museum, conservation, heritage, restoration. Essentially, you are not technically buying a visa, you are contributing to a country, and specifically, you are funding something that would otherwise decay, and in exchange of that, essentially, Portugal grants you a special type of residency. For a certain kind of person, I know many of them, that framing is meaningful. And one more thing worth mentioning here, because it's something that gets lost in all the noise about the citizenship timeline, permanent residency is still at year 5. That hasn't changed. This means that at year 5, you have the right to live and work in Portugal and across the EU, and you no longer need to hold the investment. Citizenship at year 10 becomes an optional opportunity, of course, if there are the requirements. So even if you never go for the passport, you have locked in permanent European residency after 5 years with minimal presence. Now, I would not be doing my job if I didn't give you the full picture for the donation path, because there definitely are some trade-offs here. First, the donation is obviously non-refundable. If you want your capital back, the fund route is 500,000 euro and carries fund risks. So the question is, 250,000 euro gone with certainty or 500,000 at risk? Both are real answers. They're just answers to different questions. If the capital preservation is your priority, the donation route is the wrong option for you. Second, if you are already planning to move to Europe full-time, you may be overpaying. Live somewhere on an ordinary residency permit for the required period and you can get to a similar place for much less. This product is specifically for the person who wants a European position without relocating their life to hold it. Third, and this is generally speaking the thing that most people actually ignore, the clock starts when your residency card is physically issued, and Portuguese processing has historically run very long. The gap between filing and issuance is now your problem, and it is the single biggest reason to move early rather than late, because every month of processing delay is a month that doesn't count. You need to be aware of it in advance. And fourth, more generally, even via the donation route, investment residency programs in Europe are never completely effortless. There is always a degree of commitment, administratively, documentally, visiting the country. These are serious pathways that require real commitment, and I want to make sure I stress that enough. Here is what a cultural donation looks like in practice, because I think this makes the abstract real. We are currently helping a local foundation for a project in Évora, a city in the Alentejo region of Portugal, UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1986, one of the most historically significant cities in the country. The project is the restoration of the Casa Nobre. It's a listed heritage building in the heart of Évora's historical center. It was originally established by the Calza and Pina family in the 16th century, and it was also registered as a national monument in 2024. What is inside is remarkable, painted frescoes across noble rooms, corridors and ceilings, with some allegorical scenes, and of course a very wonderful monumental staircase. There are also some heraldic stone carvings on the main facade, and beneath the ground floor, archaeological excavations have uncovered structures that predate the house itself. Medieval archways, masonry, walls, artifacts now being documented for future display. The conservation work is being carried out in partnership with FRES, the Fundação Ricardo do Espírito Santo Silva, founded in 1953. Portugal's national reference for decorative arts conservation. They operate a museum school of decorative arts in Lisbon and have the specialized workshop needed for this kind of intervention, which means mural painting, restoration, woodwork, and so far and so on. Once complete, the Casa Nobre becomes open to the public, 5 centuries of history preserved and open to the public. This is not a fee you're paying to a specific government. This is heritage restoration. Residency is what you receive in return. As a low-density area project, the donation amount for Évora is 200,000 euro. There are only 5 spots remaining out of the 50 for this project specifically. If this is something you want to explore, whether that is is a donation route, the fund route, or simply working out which path actually fits your situation, you can book a free consultation with us at Bitizenship. Link in the description below. So let's compare these in depth with the two closest alternative options, because I think this is where the picture becomes very clear. Italy. The investor visa starts at 250,000 euro into an innovative startup. Processing has historically been faster, though it's now slowing down as demand has surged. Here is the key difference. Italy requires you to actually live there. Citizenship is unlocked after 10 years of continuous legal residency. So it's a similar timeline on paper, but the commitment on the ground is fundamentally different. Greece. The Golden Visa is still running, but the amounts are higher, starting at 400,000 euro or 800,000 depending on the area, if you're going the real estate route. There are also startup routes that can bring the number down, but they come with constraints around job creation and renovation projects, which could sit at around 250,000 euro of level. They require you to complete the renovation before you can apply. Citizenship takes 7 years and requires you to actually live there. And the Greek language test is also generally considered one of them less friendly because of a different alphabet, of course, in Europe. There are other routes, of course, Malta, Cyprus, Hungary, each with its own nuances that I discuss on my newsletter and in our webinars. They're all residency pathways with different trade-offs, but what really matters is this. If you're looking for a pathway to citizenship upon meeting the requirements without relocating to a specific country, Portugal is the way. If alternatively you are looking to actually move to a European country and build your life there, then one of these other programs could definitely be of interest. That distinction is the old point that you should always keep in mind. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, so let me address the three objections I hear most often. 10 years is too long compared to what? Greece is 7 years of actually living there, and the language test is objectively hard. 183 days a year for 7 years means essentially changing your life, and you need to relocate to Greece, which is a phenomenal place, but still you need to make that decision. Portugal is 10 years, only for 5 you need to satisfy minimum stay requirements of 7 days per year. So this means that you don't need, in the case of Portugal, to change the trajectory of your life right now. And if we are being precise, it would be more correct to compare it to permanent residency in Portugal at year 5, which is when the real milestone is for most people. When you count the actual days, 10 years in Portugal is a fraction of 7 years in Greece. It's a donation, I get nothing back. Correct. You get residency and a path to citizenship upon meeting the requirements in return for funding heritage restoration. If you want your capital preserved, the fund route exists at 500,000 euro with fund risk. Different answer to a different question. Isn't that program about to close? Real estate closed in 2023, capital transfer closed a bit earlier, Spain closed entirely in 2025. I'm not going to tell you Portugal donation route is safe forever. What I will tell you is that the direction across Europe has been one way, and it is not toward more access. Every program that's still open today is one decision away from changing. And this connects to something I keep coming back to on this channel. The way I think about it, you are not really buying a visa here, you are buying optionality while it's still on the shelf. Most people are always assuming that the door stays open forever. They assume the program they are looking at today will still be there when they're ready. And we have seen over and over across Europe that that's not how it works. The families I work with who are in the strongest position aren't the ones who picked the single best country, the single best program. They're the ones who built in a structure, residency in one jurisdiction, citizenship in another, assets distributed before the window got smaller. Portugal's donation route is one piece of that structure, not the whole thing. But for the right profile, someone who wants a European position, doesn't want to relocate full-time, and is comfortable with a non-refundable contribution, I think it's the most compelling entry point into Europe right now. So to wrap this up, Portugal Golden Visa is today different, and it offers, until they change the terms, genuinely interesting conditions. The timeline doubled, that's true, the real estate is gone, but the mechanism that made it unique in Europe, 7 days a year counting towards permanent residency and eventually citizenship, is fully intact. The cultural heritage donation at 250,000 or from 200,000 in low density areas is the lowest cost route in, no fund risk, no property management, one transfer, and the first clock starts. Permanent residency at year 5, citizenship eligibility at year 10, and the only program in Europe where minimum stay requirements build towards a citizenship. If you found this useful, make sure to subscribe. I cover every major jurisdiction and hidden gem for location-independent people. Drop a comment, tell me if Portugal is on your radar or which part of this surprised you. Thanks for watching, and ciao for now.